right, it is 7 o'clock, so we will get started. Good evening and welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. We are really excited to share this ONlit Kindergarten drop-in session with you this evening, all about vocabulary. We will begin with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that ONLIT's work takes place on traditional Indigenous territories. We acknowledge that there are 46 treaties and other agreements that cover the territory now called Ontario. We are thankful to be able to work on this land, and we are thankful to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people for their care for and teachings about the earth. This acknowledgement reminds us of our responsibilities to our relationships and to the ancestral lands on which we learn, work, and live. You may already know this about ONLit, but we are a collaboration between Dyslexia Canada and the International Dyslexia Association of Ontario. And funding for ONLit is provided by the Ontario Ministry of Education. Please note that the views expressed here this evening are the views of ONLit and do not necessarily reflect those of the Ministry of Education. So I am Kate Wynn. I am an ONlit content lead, and I will share the agenda before I turn it over to another ONlit team member who will do the presentation this evening. So the topic is vocabulary. Afterwards, we will have a Q&A. So I always share kind of a from the mailbag sort of question. And then if people have questions for Lindsay about her vocabulary presentation or anything for our team in general about kindergarten literacy in Ontario, we will be happy to answer during that time. So if you want to hold your questions for the chat until that time. We will also stop the recording after the presentation portion, just because we want to be able to kind of have a free conversation and for people to feel, comfortable asking their questions and that sort of thing. So only the presentation portion is being recorded. Then at the very end, we'll just quickly let you know about an event coming up that you may want to sign up for, and we will let you know who won the prize before we all say goodnight. And now I will turn things over to a new ONlit team member this year, Lindsay Nealon, who will tell you a little bit about who she is and then dig into vocabulary.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lindsay Nealon. I am currently working for TLDSB. I've been in TLDSB board for 18 years. I have my kindergarten specialist and currently teaching JKSK. So tonight we're going to be talking about the importance of vocabulary, especially looking at the new curriculum. This quote comes from the Ontario Human Rights Commission Right to Read report. It states the importance of explicit and evidence-based instruction in building background knowledge and vocabulary knowledge being an integral part of the comprehensive literacy instruction. Looking at the Language Foundations Continuum for Reading and Writing, specifically Expectation A1.3, it highlights the understanding and use of new words and developing morphological awareness. So some words have different meanings in different contexts. In learning words, students should link the meanings and features of the words, such as their semantic features, which identify similarities and differences between words, helping link words to students' existing word schemas. Words have different roles and utilities in spoken language and written language. Tier 2 words are often found in written language, as well as in oral language in the classroom, and are useful across many different content areas. These words have high utility for students and should be the focus of our explicit vocabulary instruction. Vocabulary is developed through both explicit instruction of words and implicit learning from working with oral language and written texts. Here we're looking at Hollis Scarborough's reading rope. It's a classic visual for understanding how a child becomes a fluent reader. The rope helps us see that reading is not just about sounding out words, it's about making sense of them. The top strands of language comprehension is where vocabulary instruction lives. This section becomes increasingly strategic over time. Vocabulary is one of the 5 essential substrands. In the new curriculum, vocabulary instruction strengthens the language comprehension strand early on. So vocabulary is developed through both explicit instruction of words and implicit learning from working with oral language and written texts. In the new Ontario kindergarten curriculum, vocabulary development shifts away from the 3 cueing system to model where students they first use phonemic awareness and systematic phonics to decode words before applying independent learning strategies like morphology and context clues to determine meaning. Intentional on-purpose instruction looks like 15 to 20 minutes of explicit, cumulative teaching following a structured routine. So we've introduced, we define, we contextualize, and we interact. Educators provide kid-friendly definitions and multisensory checks for understanding to ensure new words stick, moving a word from a child's receptive vocabulary to their expressive vocabulary. Some vocabulary routine ideas from the multisensory teaching of basic skills could be not just saying the word, but embedding it. So when we contextualize a word, in our story, the giant was enormous. We want to use kid-friendly definition. Enormous means really, really big. It describes something that's much larger than normal, like a huge dinosaur, a whale, or a giant towering skyscraper. Something that's enormous. It takes up a lot of space. We want to create opportunities for personal connection. What is something enormous that you may have seen? We can also pull in the phonological awareness. What is the first sound you hear in enormous? Make sure that you're using intentional instruction, and it requires immediate feedback. So check for understanding. This could look like, I'm going to use some words. If they are enormous, so really, really big, make sure you stand up tall. If they're not, can you crouch down small? And you can use some examples like an elephant, a ladybug, a mountain. These are all great ideas to get that kinesthetic movement in the classroom. Last week, Angeline Humber, she presented on vocabulary in the French Immersion Kindergarten drop-in session. So if you attended, you'll see some correlations between this presentation, but you can check out ONlit for the recording for her presentation. Networks and features of words. This can look like learning the meaning of new words and deepening our understanding of somewhat familiar words by relating these to known words and concepts. So building these knowledge networks with educator support and direct instruction, demonstrating an understanding of categories by being able to sort, resort the pictures, objects, photographs, written words into various categories, and then sorting these items into subcategories. For an example, we could sort pictures of food or clothing into 2 different categories, and then sort these categories even further into food groups or clothing worn during different seasons. Linking new words to previously learned words based on their semantic features, using word flexibility, so adding new meanings to previously learned words, enhancing the depth of that vocabulary, recognizing that certain words have multiple meanings, which may cross over various parts of speech or grammatical functions. The example I included on this slide was a crane, one being a construction vehicle and the other one being a name of a bird. We come across that a lot in kinder, where we use words that have multiple meanings, and I have lots of questions about those from my littles. Demonstrating an understanding of antonyms, how they relate to everyday events and refer to attributes, position, location, size, age, sometimes concepts of time and quantity. So on, off, hot and cold, winter and summer, day, night, large, small, full and empty. These are all great ideas of antonyms to include in your vocabulary. So developing strategies to determine the meaning of words in oral language and text. This can really look like in the kindergarten classroom, learning the meaning of unfamiliar words through looking outside the word. So using context, include examples, synonyms and antonyms, and looking inside the word. We could be using morphological and structural analysis, applying developing morphological knowledge to support this understanding of the meaning of new words. So we could take the sentence, Ted's backyard was too small. He wanted to look for one that was more spacious. Students can use the sentence context as well as morphological information about the base space to determine the meaning of the unknown word. Beginning to build an awareness of self-monitoring when they do not understand new words and beginning to clarify the meanings with teacher support. So we can open this up to opportunities. Often when I'm doing a read aloud, I'll ask, oh, is this a word we don't know? Let's look into it. And we can build that vocabulary. In the new curriculum, applying morphological knowledge is an understanding that words are composed of morphemes, which are units of meaning within a word, and using knowledge of morphemes to support learning of the meaning of words. This can look like beginning to recognize and use understanding of high frequency morphemes. Right now, we're working on plural S to gain a deeper understanding of words. So here's an example. The word pups means more than one pup. because it ends in a plural S. Using tier 2 words, we could use words like analyze, compare. These are words that need to be explicitly taught in various subject areas and across multiple contexts. Using tier 2 words meant engaging in conversations, asking and answering questions, and using the new vocabulary in different contexts. Morphemes for Little Ones, Bringing the Magic of Language into K-3 Classrooms by Deb Glazier is a resource our board is currently using to support morphology instruction. It comes with full lessons and visual cards. Educators can use this resource to support the understanding of morphemes. All right, we all know that words have different roles and utilities in spoken and written language. We're going to look at the 3 tiers. In tier 1 vocabulary, these are the most common words that children are typically picking up through everyday conversation and play. They rarely require direct instruction in our classroom because they're used so frequently at home and in the community. They're often high frequency. They can be common nouns and verbs and adjectives, the foundation for daily communication. This could also be a focus for our MLL students who do not know these words. Tier 2 vocabulary. So tier 2 words are found in written language as well as in oral language in the classroom and are useful across many different content areas. These words have high utility for students and should be the focus of our explicit vocabulary instruction. Tier 3 words are generally specific to a particular content area and have less broad utility for students, so they're typically taught in subject areas. And you can quickly pre-teach these or do in a drop-in definition if it's required for comprehension. So in kindergarten, these are taught briefly during a specific unit. And they're not always expected to be part of the student's daily repertoire. There's some key shifts in the new curriculum. While the tiers themselves aren't new, the way they are taught has changed. Educators are now expected to provide direct definition and wordplay for tier 2 words. There is a new focus on morphological awareness, like adding S for plural, changes the meaning of words in all 3 tiers. The curriculum emphasizes building a comprehensive oral vocabulary first, which acts as a Velcro for when students start decoding these same words in print. You can check out A1 Oral and Nonverbal Communication for more information on tier 2 vocabulary. So when starting to plan for explicit vocabulary instruction in your classroom, I always like to start with Anita Archer's vocabulary instruction routine. Here's an example of her explicit vocabulary instruction routine. There is a K example available on her website.
Now, there are some words in this story that I would really like us to learn because we could use them all of the time. And this word is, let's read it by parts. The first part is con. What part, everyone? Con, and use the sound s. And the next part is sen. And the last part is trait. And say it really fast, everyone. Concentrate. One more time, everyone. Concentrate. One more time. Concentrate. Now, you remember in the story that some of the animals couldn't, what, everyone? Concentrate when the wolf was reading. Now, the word concentrate means that you are able to really think about something. You're able to put all of your attention on it. So when I really think about something and put all of my attention on it, I concentrate. What do, everyone? I concentrate. For example, if you were doing your math and you did one problem and then the next problem, and never looked up when someone came in the room, we would say that she knows how to, what, everyone? Concentrate. If you came to the library and sat down and you took out a book and you just read and read, even though he came over and she walked around you, we'd say, boy, you are able to put your thinking on it. You're able to put your attention on it. She knows how to, what, everyone? Concentrate. Get ready to tell me if this person in the pretend story knows how to concentrate. So you are reading in class and you just read and you turn the page and you read some more and you read some more and you read some more and you just keep reading. Does she know how to concentrate? Yes or no, everyone? Yes, okay? And this is pretend, because it would never happen. So you start reading a page, and then you look up at the clock, and then you look down, and then you talk over with your friends, and you look back at the book. Does she know how to concentrate, yes or no? No. She really does. That was just a pretend story. So once again, what is our word, everyone? Concentrate.
I just saw some pop up that you may not have heard that, but you can access that on her website. There's some great examples, and I love them because it just gives me some great ideas to pull those into the classroom. So in the kindergarten classroom, for myself, I like to use the Frayer model. So I like to use an instructional routine for teaching each vocabulary term, including these steps. So I want to introduce the word. I want to present a student-friendly explanation. I want to illustrate the word with examples, and I want to check for student understanding, and then I want to review the words. So here's my example for a kindergarten classroom using the Frayer model for Tier 2 word introduction. So since the new kindergarten curriculum emphasizes building oral vocabulary before decoding, you want to keep the text really minimal and use large, high-quality photos for each of the quadrants when planning for whole group. So I would introduce the new vocabulary. For tonight, I picked observe. So our new word is observe. Everyone, let's say it together. Observe. To observe means to look at something very carefully and to learn about it. What does observe mean? Yes, it means to look at something very carefully and to learn about it. When we observe, we look at something very carefully with our eyes and our brain to learn new things. You want to highlight some of the characteristics of the word observe. So using your eyes, being quiet, taking notes, using a magnifying glass. And this is where you can pull in student ideas, and you could do this whole group at carpet. You could do this at small group as well, and then bring it back to carpet to share that interest in understanding. And then you want them to come up with some examples. So some examples might be watching a bug, looking at the clouds, checking the weather. And you also want to include non-examples, ignoring, closing your eyes, running past something without looking. And here are some really great student engagement ideas that I use in my classroom and that you can use for your instructional routine. So think, pair, share is great. So look at the picture of the child ignoring the bug. That's a non-example. Why is that not observing? Turn and tell your elbow partner. This is some great stop and thinks. We also want to have that oral first bridge. So can you think of something in our classroom that you want to observe today during play? You could also pull in those choral responses that Anita was using. So include movement, check for understanding by using examples and non-examples. When I'm planning, I also really want to look at where am I going to explicitly teach vocabulary? And I need to look at where vocabulary should sit. So in the new kindergarten curriculum, vocabulary is not just a list of words. It's part of the language foundations continuum. Syntax provides the structure for using vocabulary to communicate effectively. New vocabulary must be taught using an explicit instructional routine by direct modeling, guided practice, and purposeful individual practice. But how do we structure this into our flow of the day? If you missed the Flow of the Day Structured Literacy and Play with Nikki Alderman, you can check out the recording on ONlit, as many features that she highlighted will be woven throughout this presentation, and she explains in-depth planning for Flow of the Day. Excellent resource. So this slide shows us 2 sample flows of the day. So there's no single right flow. Each one should be responsive to the students within your classroom and intentionally designed to support literacy learning across the day. The new kindergarten curriculum emphasizes the importance of responsive relationships and recognizes the 3 instructional approaches on this slide. It should be evidence-based, systematic, and explicit instruction, play-based learning, as well as inquiry. Integrating explicit instruction of Tier 2 words as a standard part of your read aloud routine is a great way to boost both vocabulary and comprehension. So here are some ideas on how to incorporate vocabulary instruction into your flow of the day. Planning mentor texts. So stemming from your inquiries, using text for all strands. I use text in my math instruction, and I know we have coding instruction coming up. This is a great spot to pull in your mentor texts. Interweaving our Indigenous read alouds, supporting our cultural days. These are all great ideas. So daily rich text sets for read alouds is really great. If you haven't checked out Melissa Monette Smith's presentation on interactive read alouds in kindergarten, she shared practical strategies for using interactive read alouds to build vocabulary, deeper comprehension, and model fluent expressive reading of young learners. Vocabulary in whole groups supports language comprehension side of Scarborough's reading rope. Intentionally grouping these sets of texts focused on a specific topic designed to help all learners build background knowledge and vocabulary. So, vocabulary in whole group. Whole group instruction is a key component for structured literacy in kindergarten. Educators provide daily, evidence based, systematic, and explicit instruction in foundational skills. Instruction includes clear modeling and is highly interactive, using strategies such as choral responses and signals, like thumbs up and thumbs down, ensure that all children are practicing throughout the lesson. Play provides opportunities to practice, support, and extend this vocabulary. Play invitations that grow out of shared read alouds are especially effective in promoting text related play. These experiences invite children to revisit stories, characters, and ideas in meaningful ways. This supports strand A3 as children revisit and make meaning from texts in play. It also can connect to strand D19, particularly where educators select texts that reflect children's identities. An excellent resource to check out is Strive for Five, specifically Chapter 5, which is Building Vocabulary with Conversations. How do we expand vocabulary in our play? How are we being intentional about planning for literacy learning opportunities throughout the day? Play remains a vital part of the kindergarten day with indoor and outdoor play and play environments. Play provides authentic, meaningful opportunities for children to develop and practice their vocabulary skills. Here I have some examples of a wonder wagon that can go outside. Play helps students make connections using vocabulary and drawing on their prior knowledge. So you can see examples of outdoor environment as well as inside environment planning. In our planning, we should also be looking at assessment. And the growing success mandates that assessment for young learners must be based on triangulation of evidence. So, through our observations, through those conversations and products to ensure comprehensive, valid, and reliable picture of a child's development. Assessment is an integral part of daily instruction and makes students' thinking visible. I've also included differentiation. As we know, tier one words may be considered when we are explicitly planning for vocabulary instruction for our MLL learners, but differentiation can be particularly important for some students, including our English language learners and our multilingual language learners. While these students are learning the language of instruction and developing vocabulary, they should also be encouraged to develop and to maintain proficiency in their first and other languages.
Thank you so much, Lindsay Nealon, for that wonderful presentation. That was fantastic. A lot of information to take in and so many great ideas for educators to take back to their classrooms. So thank you so much. We have reached the end of the recorded portion of our drop-in for today. So if you are watching this, after the fact, thank you so much for being here and joining us.